As we have all learned, being daughters of the American Revolution, our society was founded in October of 1890. But it takes time, doesn't it, to truly establish an organization, to make it successful, collecting funds, gathering members, creating plans for the good works that would be our grand society. So what an amazing thing to think about. Just 2 years after its founding, our first President General, Mrs. Carolyn Scott Harrison, presented her plans for a home center for our many and rapidly growing interests. And here, paraphrasing from our DAR magazine from 1911, February 1892, Mrs. Cabell voiced the sentiments of the assembled daughters in an eloquent address. The outward and visible sign, quote, of what we believe to be an inward and spiritual grace is the building of a house beautiful, to be the property in fee simple of these American women, calling themselves by inherited right daughters of the American Revolution. It should be located in or near the beautiful capital city named for Washington, the Immortal. It should be the finest building ever owned by women. The fairest marbles from Vermont and Tennessee, the most enduring granite from Massachusetts and the Virginias should combine for strength and beauty in its construction. She continues, purely American should this structure be. Every fluted column, every gorgeous capital should owe its loveliness to the hand of an American artist, end quote. Well, Mrs. Cabell closed her appeal in these words. As one of the women whose lives have been spent by the hearthstone, in the nursery and in the schoolroom, whose prayer has been, ever, not for more privileges, but for more strength to bear the great privileges and to discharge the responsibilities of wifehood and motherhood, I feel impelled to advance and advocate, however feebly, an enterprise which, if properly developed, men and women will rise and call blessed because of its widespreading influence and the magnificent possibilities it offers to our sisterhood, the patriotic, home-loving, and country-loving women of America, end quote. Well, on June 4th, 1902, at the call of what was then at that time the Committee on Continental Hall, a meeting was held in President General Fairbanks' home, and there, in the presence of many women who had labored for this end from the very moment that the organization had existence, the present site was purchased with the funds then on hand. Immediately after the purchase of the site, the building of the Memorial Hall was commenced, and Mrs. Fairbanks had the honor of presiding over the laying of the cornerstone. Well, friends, the ceremony was so incredibly grand and so very important to the establishment of our crowned jewel that this event deserves its own segment all by itself at a later date of this podcast. But to continue with our story, plans continued, of course, and the job of building, furnishing, and all was well underway. We find ourselves now at the Iowa State Conference in October of 1903, where President General Mrs. Fairbanks again offered her remarks, talking to the daughters about the need to have a place like Memorial Continental Hall. Honestly, these words are just as poignant today, so I'll just quote them here. The time is now near at hand when the daughters of the American Revolution will erect a memorial which shall be an enduring testimonial and acknowledgement, even if it is but a partial payment of the great debt due to the matchless courage and endurance of the men and women of the Revolution. This monument, which is ever to testify that our patriotic society is worthy the great name it bears, has a practical business side as well as the higher and grander aim of standing eternally a mark of esteem and gratitude to the illustrious ones who, through the stress of toil and tribulation, founded that mighty fabric, our free republic. Let us build into the stately walls of our memorial the memory of those whose names are illuminations upon the annals of the struggles for liberty and progress. Let every daughter of the American Revolution help to twine about the 13 columns memories of heroic deeds done, of patient work, of tender self-sacrifice by the steadfast men and women of those 13 original states, from each of which comes this modern army, devoted to human rights, to human progress, to the elevation of the downtrodden, to the preservation of the sacred spirit of liberty, the National Society Daughters of the American Revolution, end quote. Well then, in 1911, this was written in our DAR magazine, and I quote, The National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution is now established in its own national headquarters. This stately Valhalla, erected from motives of purest patriotism by our organization of public-spirited women, is now completed and all the bills are paid. As an article in the Washington Star says, and I quote, "This Valhalla is unique. It is the costliest and most impressive monument of its kind ever built by women in this country or any other. Many other halls of fame have been erected, and other grand monuments consecrated to the memory of some individual heroic figure in the history of the nation. But this is the first building dedicated to all the recognized heroes of the American Revolution, men and women alike. From the artistic standpoint, it is one of the finest buildings which the beautiful Capitol contains, and from the utilitarian, it is destined to become one of the most useful. But most of all does it typify, in the loftiest form, what its projectors intended it should be, a perpetual memorial to the heroic dead who made the nation, created and paid for by the efforts of women who are their lineal descendants." End quote. So friends, this is what our task is today, not only honoring the men and women of the Revolution, but also honoring that monumental task, the incredibly successful monument that our founding members, presidents general and members alike, giving of themselves, their time, and a mind-boggling amount of resources to create the gift we have today, Memorial Continental Hall. Every donation to the President General's Project Fund, every time you purchase a Wright administration piece, whether it be the America pin, the tote bag, scarf, any and all, you're supporting the restoration of this house beautiful of ours. What a story our granddaughters will have to tell. The stories of the countless members who stepped up and showed by their actions that this is a monument worth preserving. While some may want to take monuments down, we want to raise ours up, showing the pride we have in the incredible sacrifice of these American patriots, the men and women of the American Revolution.